Our previous class we learned about verification waterfall model, and there was one major problem with that model. Okay, what was that problem? The one major problem in the waterfall model was that defects were found at a very later stage. Okay, why it is found very later stage? Because until and unless development is not completed, you are not able to test, right? Because when the testing phase was there, after development. So uh, as you are starting your testing after development phase, so when you are going to find the defects, you are going to find that defects at a very later stage. Okay, so that is the only reason it will be become very challenging and costly to fix the defect. It will be difficult and costly to fix that defect since it were found at a very later state. Okay, cool, it is clear. So now moving to the difference, for to I can say to to overcome this challenge, to overcome this problem, V model come into picture. Okay, V models is also called as verification and validation model, or V model. Okay, so first we will try to understand what is verification and validation, and then we will move forward to the detailed description, the detailed explanation of V model. So let me go to the another slide, that is verification and validation. So let's understand what is verification and what is validation. So Tolu, I would like to understand from you what you understand from verification and validation. How you will explain if I will ask you verification and validation? You are on mute. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, what is verification?
Verification to me, I'll describe it as something that, like, if you want to verify this is exactly the kind of product that you've probably ordered for,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that it meets up with your specification.
Okay, and how about validation?
Validation. Well, I will say it's that should be on the part of the consumer.
Okay, okay, fine. Let me give you some explanation about this. So verification means actually to this is a static process. Okay, verification is a static process. Static means actually the code execution will not come into picture in verification. Let me give you some examples. If you are reviewing something, in last class I explained you about BRS, business requirement specification, and SRS,
Yes.
software requirement specification. Who produced that? That is produced by BA, right? So once that
Mm.
document is produced, that will be actually I can say verified by the customer. They review that, so that review process comes under verification. Okay, but when the development is done and the software is ready, then what you will do as a QA, you will test that. So that process is actually comes under validation. Okay, so
Okay.
here you can see an example also. See, say testing like black box testing, white box testing, gray box, these are actually testing. So when you do actual testing, means where code execution will come into picture, is called validation. But when you review something, when you do meeting or some inspections, this all comes under verification activity. Okay, these are the things called verification. Suppose you are reviewing a document. Okay, so that will come under verification. You are doing some meeting related to just take some output for your project, that will comes under verification process. That these are things which you are doing as a verification. But when you are testing a software, that will come under validation, because that is a dynamic process. Okay, so
Mm.
let me give you a detailed explanation and difference between verification and validation. So what is verification? The objective of verification is to make sure that the product being developed is as per the requirement and design specification. So product actually which is going to be developed will be as per requirement. So this is what the objective of verification is. But when it comes to validation, then the objective here is to make sure that the product which is developed is actually meet the requirement, okay, meet up the user's requirement, and check whether the specifications were correct in first place. So in validation, when we do validation, once the product is ready, then we do validation to check whether all the requirements are proper or not. But when we do verification actually to make that product as per requirement. So always to make a product, the stuffs which we are doing is comes under verification. And once the product is developed, build, and then we are doing other activities to check whether it is meeting the requirement or not, that is called a validation. The next example will give you the next point will explain you that verification is, are we building the system right? This is what verification says. And then what says validation? Are we building the right system? That is actually validation. Okay, so the system is getting built. So are we building that right? We will test it and then we can say. So to test that, this statement will come. Are we building the right system? How you will come to know? You have to validate that. You have to test that. So this statement belongs to validation. And are we building the system right? This will comes under verification. Now, as I already explained you, that reviews, meetings, inspections, these all comes under verification, and testing such as black box testing will come under validation. Moving to the next point, then verification is carried out by QA team. Who do verification? Verification is carried out by QA team to check whether implementation of software is as per specification document or not. But validation is actually done by the testing team. Okay, so QA is something who is assuring the quality, quality analyst or quality assurance, and a testing team will be a team who is testing that particular project. Okay, they are actually testers. Now moving to the next point, execution of code is not come. See, as I already told you that in the verification, code execution will not come into picture. There is no code execution, there is no code, I can say code will come into picture, because you are just reviewing the documents, that's why. And now here in validation, code execution will come into picture. Now if you will find any bug in verification, the cost of that bug to fix that particular bug will be less. See here, cost of error which is caught in verification is less than the error found in validation. So it's easy, because suppose you are reviewing a document and you find any bug or any issue, right? So it will be really easy to fix that. But when you are testing a software, when you are validating a software and you find any bug, then it will be really difficult, it will be costly for you, because here developers are required, then they will fix that, then they will compile and send it back to you. So cost will be more comparatively when you find a bug in verification. Okay, now moving to the next point, that is, it is basically manual checking. Okay, for verification is actually a manual checking of the documents and files like requirement specification etc. But validation is basically a checking of a developed program, okay, on the requirement specification. So here we basically do testing on software. Validation, you can say validation means testing of that software, actual testing of that software. But verification means testing of the document which is actually developed by the BA to develop that software. This is what a difference between both. Verification it does not involve execution of code, as I already said, but in validation execution of code will come into picture. You can also say that verification is a static practice. This is a static process of verifying the document, design, code and program. But validation is a dynamic mechanism. Here code execution will come into picture. So validation will be a dynamic process. Now it is human based checking of document. Here human have to check that document, but this is a computer based execution of program. Okay, once you click on any software button, then what computer will execute that? If you will click on my profile, then your profile will open. Who do that? That computer do that. Computer will execute that code and land you to the my profile screen in any software. So this is actually a computer based execution. Now it can catch, verification can catch error that validation cannot catch. So there is again a thin line difference between both. The errors which you are able to caught or catch in validation, you are not able to in verification, that will not be able to catch in validation. Okay, so this is again a difference between both. So verification is a low level exercise and validation is a high level exercise. This is actually a difference between verification and validation. Okay, so if I will just try to make it very clear difference, then what is verification? Verification is a static process where code review, meetings and other stuffs where code execution is not come into picture is done by the team members. Then what is validation? Validation is a dynamic exercise where code execution of the software will come into picture, and here actual testing will be done by the team members. What is the example of verification? Reviewing of SRS or BRS, doing meetings, these are the examples of verification. What is the example of validation? Black box testing is an example of validation. Doing actual testing on the software will be an example of validation. Is it clear, Cholu? Verification
Yes.
and validation? Okay. Fine. So now moving to the topic, which is the another model, that is called V model. So let's understand this diagram first. Okay, because the diagram is a bit different than the waterfall model. Here, if you will see, from here this process will start. Okay, from requirement analysis. Who will do this? BA will do this. Okay, so once BA, business analyst, will understand and analyze the requirement, that time BA will prepare a document. That document is called requirement document, SRS or BRS. But here in this process, as I already said, that testing will also start parallelly. In waterfall model, what was the problem? In waterfall model, problem was testing was actually getting started very late after development phase. So if bugs were find at very later stage, that will be the problem, because the cost of fixing that bug will be high. So what is the benefit of this model? We start our testing activity early. So when the requirement analysis will be done by the BA, that time what QA will do, QA will read that SRS requirement, means review activity will be done. QA will review that document, and as per the review of that document, they will prepare a acceptance test case. This is what done by the QA. So once this phase is completed, means QA reviewed that and prepared that acceptance test case, then the next phase will start. This phase is called a design phase. So when the design team will design that particular software, that time QA will review this particular design and prepare his system test case. Once the system and design phase is completed, then the next phase will come here. That is again a design phase, but here architecture of system will be designed. At that time, when architectural design were done by the technical architecture team, that is technical, I can say solution architect or technical architect, at that time QA will prepare the integration test cases. These all are test cases, different type of test cases. Now once the architectural design is completed, then module design will come into picture. Here the different modules of the software will be designed, and when this module design were done by the developers, by the design team members, at that time QA will prepare his unit test cases. Okay, and once this is done, then the next phase will come, which is called coding. Okay, so coding means development. Software will start developing here. Once the developer will done the coding, then it will be given to testing team. And this all phase, this all, left hand side of the V is actually validation. See, this is a validation process. Everywhere testing is going on. Here also unit testing by this document, this test case which is prepared by QA. Then once unit testing is done, then integration testing with the test case which is prepared here, then system testing, and then UAT. This all testing is actual testing. So this is called validation. This particular right hand side of the V model is called a validation part. Then where is the verification part? This side means left hand side of the V model diagram is verification part. That is the reason it is called verification and validation. Verification and validation activities are going on parallelly, and once verification activity is done, then coding and parallelly validation activities are done, then coding is completed, and then we start doing validation, actual testing. Is this diagram is clear to you, Tolu, or you need any?
Yes.
Okay, cool, fine. So now moving to the detailed descriptions, let's read this and understand this. Okay, so in V model there is not any special phase of testing. This is true. You can see there is no testing block as it was there in waterfall. There is no special testing. Okay, then as it was there in waterfall, in V model testing starts right from the requirement phase. See, testing activity actually started from here only, from the requirement phase only. First the BA prepare that document. At that time testers means QA start reviewing his document. So review is again a testing activity, as we already learned in the different another slide, that verification is again a testing activity. So here QA will be actively participating from the first stage only to avoid the bugs, to avoid the issues which actually they are facing, or they are just realizing, or they are just catching at the later stage after development. So that is the reason they start their review from here only. Now what is left hand side? So left hand side activities are development activities. See, it is very clearly all the activities at the left hand side are development activity. Requirement analysis, then system design. Design is again a part of development activity. Then we design the architecture of software. This is a development activity. Then there is a module design. Every module of software we need to design, such as login, forgot password, product listing, add to cart, payment gateway. These all modules designs will be a development activity. Then we do actual coding, actual development here after all the activities are done. And once the coding is done, then we start doing actual testing on different stages. First testing what we do here is unit testing. Second testing which we do is called integration testing. Third testing which we do called system testing. And final testing is called UAT. That is user acceptance testing, UAT. So now testing can be done in all phase of development activities as well. So here testing activities are done in all the phases of the development activity. So here requirement analysis is the first phase. In this phase the requirement are collected, analyzed and studied. Here how the system is implemented is not important, but what the system is supposed to do is important, okay? Because in requirement analysis, what we understood, what we analyze, what we capture how that system is going to behave, what are the functionalities is required in that particular software. These are the things which were discussed between client and BA. So in requirement analysis, BA will do brainstorming, sessions walkthrough, and then take a clear picture, and then finally prepare a document, okay? That is BRS or SRS. Now let's see the activities. What are the activities done here in this phase? Verification activity is actually a requirement review. We already understood couple of minutes before that what is verification. Verification is a review activity. So what type of review we do here in the requirement analysis phase? We review the requirements which is actually prepared by that BA. That BA guy prepared that requirement, and review is done here by the QAs, by the customers and other members. So this is what we have done as a verification activity. And then what is validation activity here? We are doing some validation activities as well. What we are doing, let's check that in diagram. So here this is the validation activity. What we are doing, we are preparing a acceptance test case, okay? So here creation of UAT, that is user acceptance test case, is actually a validation activity. This is what a validation activity is here. So sometimes in interview, what they will ask you that, hey Tolu, do you have idea about verification and validation model? You will say, yes, I have idea. Then they will ask you, okay, can you just give me an idea what we do in requirement gathering phase in VNV? So you have to say that in verification in VNV model, basically in requirement phase, there will be two activities done. First, we will analyze that requirement and then create a document. That is done by BA. And then there is a verification activity where that particular requirement which is created by BA will be reviewed by the right person. That might be a QA or maybe customer. And this is a verification activity which is done in the requirement phase. And the validation activity which is done in that requirement phase is creation of user acceptance test case, which is done by the QA. This is how you have to answer for that. So what are the documents here prepared? So there are two documents prepared. One document is called SRS, prepared by BA. Another document is called UAT test case, that is user acceptance test case. This one, acceptance test case, which is prepared by BA. QA. So this is all about the requirement analysis phase. This is how the requirement analysis phase will goes on. Once this requirement analysis phase is completed, then we will move to the next phase, that is called system requirements or high level design phase, okay? In this phase, high level design of the software is built. Here actually high level design of that particular software is built. Team have that design team, what they will do, they will prepare a high level design of that software, how that software will be going to work. So for that a particular design will be prepared, okay? Then what will be the verification activity here? What we have to review? We have to review that particular design which is prepared by that design team. Then what is the validation activity here? Because here the validation activity is test case. Which test case? System test case. So the validation activity here is creation of system test case or system test plan. This will be the validation activity. Then what are the artifacts produced? Artifacts means documents, okay? So here artifacts produce, what are the different documents produced here in this phase, system requirement phase? System test cases, feasibility report, system test plan, and hardware requirement specification and other modules. These are the documents which will be actually prepared here in this high level design phase. Now the next phase will come into picture, that is architectural design. What we have to do here? Here the architecture team, basically technical architect and solution architect, they will prepare a design of that software. technical architectural design, okay, and that design will be reviewed by the technical engineers, maybe sometime customers and QA. So that verification activities will be done here. And validation activity, in validation activity QA will prepare a integration testing plan and test cases. So once this particular architectural design is completed, then the next phase will come into picture, that is called a module design, which is actually a low level designs, okay. Here the different modules of the software will be designed by the developer. Basically, what are those modules? Such as in login module, they have to design the method of login. Then in add to cart module, they will design the different classes and interfaces. In payment gateway, they will design. When I am saying here design means not actually draw, okay. Design means code via code, okay. They will design via code, they will use coding here. So here verification activity will be design review. The designing of that modules which is done by the developers will be reviewed here, which is actually a verification activity. But parallelly, what we did for validation activity, we as a QA created a test cases. So creation of that unit test cases will be the validation activity. What are the artifact produced here? What documents we produce? We produce unit test cases. Now all the design phases is completed. Here after that, implementation or coding phase will come into picture. What will be done here? So here actual code will be developed and built by the developers, and then the code review, the code is actually written proper or not, that will be done by the reviewer. They will review the code. This is the verification activity. Now what is validation activity here? So here validation activity is creation of functional test cases. All the functionalities now we have to verify, so we will create a functional test cases. So what is the artifact here? The artifact here is a functional test case and the review checklist. This is all about the left hand side of this diagram. Till now what we learned is all about the development activities, that is called verification activities. Now validation or testing of that product, of this particular product in V model will be a right hand side activity. So now let's move to the right hand side. So right hand side demonstrate the testing activities or a validation phase. We will start from bottom. Here we have to start from bottom, and first is actually unit testing. So what is happening here in unit testing? Here I have to drive you with some example, okay. So how software is being developed? Let me give you an example of a pen, okay. So suppose when pen is developed, ball pen, let's take an example of ball pen, okay. So ball pen is developed, not entire ball pen is produced by a machinery, okay. Different spare parts of that ball pen is first developed, such as I'm giving an example. The cap of that ball pen is produced separately, the body of the ball pen is produced separately, the ink, that particular lead of that particular pen will be produced separately. And now what we do, we integrate everything. We put that lead, particular ink into that pen, and then we tie that body, and then we place that cap of that pen in that particular pen. By this way we will create a complete pen. True? Are you following me?
Yes.
Okay, so here also the software, the complete software is not developed entirely at a time. They will be developed in chunks, okay, in units, and now all the units are started integrating together, and after integrating all the units, the complete system, complete software will be ready, okay. So here also unit testing. What is unit testing? You have to test that particular unit. This is not a complete software, this is a piece of code actually which is written, and available to test. Okay, so here unit testing is a white box testing technique. This is a white box testing. We already learned about white box testing. You remember white box? In white box testing we as a QA must have a very good knowledge of programming, then only we are able to test this particular unit. Okay, where a piece of code is written which invokes some method to test whether the code snippet is given an expected output or not. This test is basically performed by the development team because development knowledge is required here. Okay, so artifact which is produced here, which document is produced? Unit testing execution result, because unit tests which is created before we executed that, then there will be result of that cases, which is actually the artifacts of this particular phase. After unit testing, integration testing will come into picture. So there are 2 or 3 or 4 units are developed by the developer. They will add all the units, they will integrate all the units and then provide to the QA. So then what QA will do? QA will check the integration flow, the data is getting flow from one unit to another or not. They will check all the units are completely tightly coupled, data are properly flowing from one unit to another unit or not. This is what a unit integration testing is. Okay, more than one unit combined together and then testing is started. And what we have to test here? The data flow, proper data flow is there or not in from one module to another module. Okay, this is called integration testing. So here in this phase, the integration test cases which is written were created in architectural design phase, that will be executed in integration testing. Integration testing is a technique where the unit tested module, the module which is already unit tested, are integrated, that is integrated together and then tested. Whether the integrated modules are rendering the expected result. When 2 or more than 2 units are joined together, then all are properly rendering or not, all are working as expected or not. This is what we have to validate here in integration testing. This is called integration test result, the output of this particular phase. After that, system testing will come into picture. So what is system testing? Here the complete system is ready, all the modules are joined together, all the modules are integrated, all the units are integrated and complete software is ready. Now you have to do some testing. So once the complete software is ready and then you have to do testing on that, then what you will do? You will in the phase in this phase, all the system test cases, functional test cases and non-functional test cases are executed, because your test cases, because your software is completely ready. So you have to do end-to-end testing here, complete testing. Whatever you can do, you have to do here in system testing, because your system is ready to test. In other words, the actual and full-fledged testing of the application takes place here. Actual testing is done here in system testing phase. Defects are logged and tracked for it closer. Bugs basically logged here, and we keep them tracked and make it drag it to close. The traceability matrices are updated and checked, and coverage and risk mitigated. That I will explain you later about traceability matrix. What is that? Because you will here it will be difficult to understand at this point. Now artifacts produce the test result. The different results which is produced here is test result, test logs, defect reports, test summary report, because we are doing testing. These are the artifacts which will be produced here in system testing. Moving to the next point, which is user acceptance testing. This is last testing. User acceptance testing is something where this testing is done to understand whether the software is actually acceptable by the users or not, how good it is, so that it can be accepted by users. So here we have to basically validate that business requirements, all the businesses requirement are properly managed, properly incorporated in the software or not. Okay, so this is all about the user acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is basically related to the business requirement testing. Here we have to verify all the business requirements are properly incorporated in the software or not. Here testing is done to validate the business requirement are met in the user environment. And compatibility testing is sometimes non-functional testing are also done. Sometimes compatibility testing is also done. Compatibility means testing that software in different environment, because customer must have very much different environment. Maybe you have iPhone and I have Android phone, but both are using Flipkart or both are using Facebook. So company has to check Facebook is working proper in iPhone as well as in Android or not. So this is what about compatibility testing. Okay, so the artifact produced here is a UAT result, user acceptance testing result, and updated business coverage matrices. Now the last point is when to use V model. At what are the different type of project where we can use V model. So V models are basically used where requirement is well defined. Means if the requirement is clear, it is not ambiguous, in that case we can use V model. Second point is acceptance criteria are well defined. What we have to verify, what are the things which we are keeping as an acceptance criteria, that is very much clear, that is very clearly defined by the customers and business team. So this is again required to use this model. Project is short to medium in size. Then technology and tools used are not dynamic. Technologies and tool which we are using is not dynamic, means that is fixed technology which we are using. In these cases we can use V model. So this is all about V model which we learned. Is this clear, Tolu? Any questions?
Yes,
Okay.
I understood.
Okay, fine. So this is all about V model. In next session we are going to learn about different software testing levels. Okay, what are the different software testing levels we are going to learn? What I'll do, I will upload that testing levels document in your library. Okay, once you will get a time, have a look into that, and then we will take that software testing level class in our next session. Okay, fine.